Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the stars move past the main screen. The ship had been traveling for 6 months since leaving Earth's solar system. This was humanity's first real journey into deep space, and Jake felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Behind him worked his crew of 12 people, including Dr. Lisa Martinez, who studied alien life, and Tyler Brooks, who handled all communications with Earth. Katie Wright ran the engine room and kept their ship moving through the cold darkness of space. The Kepler 442 system appeared ahead of them like a small dot of light that grew bigger each day. Earth's scientists had picked this system because it might have planets where life could exist. Jake had been chosen to lead this mission because he was one of the best pilots in the Earth Space Navy. He had spent 15 years flying between Earth and Mars before taking command of deep space missions. Lisa Martinez called out from her station that they were getting close to the system. Her instruments showed several planets moving around the star. Tyler Brooks checked his equipment and confirmed they could still talk to Earth even though the signals took many hours to travel the huge distance. Katie Wright reported that the engines were working perfectly and they had enough fuel for the long trip home. As they entered the system, Jake ordered the ship to slow down so they could study everything carefully. The star was smaller than Earth's sun, but still gave off bright light. 3 planets moved in circles around it, and one looked like it might have water on its surface. Lisa Martinez became very excited as her sensors found signs that this planet had air that humans could breathe. Then, Tyler Brooks noticed something strange on his screens. There was a large object near the star that was not a planet or asteroid. It was perfectly round and made of metal that reflected the star's light. The object was huge and clearly built by intelligent beings. Jake ordered the ship to move closer so they could get better pictures. The metal structure was bigger than any city on Earth. It had strange patterns covering its surface and gave off energy readings that none of them had seen before. Lisa Martinez said her instruments detected technology that was far more advanced than anything humans had ever built. The structure looked very old, like it had been floating in space for thousands of years. Katie Wright checked the engines again, because she felt nervous about getting too close to the alien object. Tyler Brooks tried to contact Earth but knew it would take hours for any message to reach home. Jake made the decision to move closer and see if they could learn more about who built this amazing structure. As the horizon approached the alien object, something happened that changed everything. Lights began flashing on the structure's surface in patterns that looked like signals. Tyler Brooks detected radio waves coming from the object that carried complex information. The alien structure had noticed their ship and was trying to communicate with them. Before anyone could respond, the space around them filled with brilliant light. Ships appeared from nowhere as if they had been hiding in the darkness between stars. These vessels were sleek and beautiful with smooth curves and no visible engines. They moved through space like fish swimming through water and positioned themselves around the human ship. Jake ordered all weapons to be ready, even though he knew their small guns would not help against such advanced ships. The alien vessels did not attack, but instead sent a signal that Tyler Brooks received on the main communication system. The message came in perfect English, which shocked everyone on the bridge. A voice spoke through their speakers with a tone that was calm, but cold. The being called itself Ambassador Vex Hari, and said it represented something called the Dominion Collective. The voice explained that 12 different alien species worked together to control this part of the galaxy. They had been watching Earth. Since humans first sent radio signals into space over 100 years ago, Ambassador Vex Hari told Jake that humans were considered dangerous and unpredictable. The Dominion had studied human history and seen how people fought wars and destroyed their own planet's environment. They had decided that humanity could not be allowed to spread to other worlds and threaten the peaceful order of the galaxy. The alien ambassador gave Jake a terrible choice. He had 72 hours to send a message to Earth telling all humans to surrender to Dominion control. If Earth agreed to become a subject world, then humans would be allowed to live under alien rule. If Earth refused, then the Dominion would send warships to destroy every human city and colony in space. Jake felt his blood turn cold as he realized that his simple exploration mission had discovered humanity's greatest threat. The aliens had technology that was thousands of years ahead of Earth's science. Their ships could travel between stars in seconds, while it took humans months to cross the same distance. If they decided to attack Earth, there would be no way to stop them. Tyler Brooks asked if he should start preparing the message to Earth, but Jake told him to wait. The commander stared at the alien ships surrounding them and knew that the next few hours would decide the future of the entire human race. President Helen Carter sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the White House and read Jake Sullivan's message for the third time. The words seemed impossible to believe, but the video proof was clear. Alien ships surrounded the horizon, and their ultimatum was real. Earth had 72 hours to surrender or face complete destruction. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth. Admiral Roy Dixon commanded all space forces, and his face was red with anger. Secretary of State Monica Bell looked pale as she studied the alien ship images. Dr. Alex Kim, who ran the secret weapons program, tapped his fingers on the table nervously. General Patricia Hayes controlled Earth's armies while Dr. Emma Stone represented the science community. Admiral Dixon slammed his hand on the table and said Earth should fight no matter what the cost. He argued that humans had never surrendered to anyone and would not start now. Monica Bell disagreed and said they should try to negotiate with the aliens. She believed that any species smart enough to travel between stars might be willing to find a peaceful solution. Dr. Alex Kim surprised everyone by saying he had been preparing for this day for 20 years. His team had been building weapons based on theories about alien contact. They had particle beam guns and energy shields that might work against advanced technology. The equipment was not tested in real combat, but it was better than nothing. President Carter asked Dr. Stone what the science community thought about the alien threat. Emma Stone said her analysis of the images showed technology that was incredibly advanced. The alien ships had no visible engines, but could move faster than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could probably destroy cities from space with no effort at all. The meeting was interrupted when news reports began showing crowds of people in the streets. Someone had leaked information about the alien ultimatum, and panic was spreading across the world. Some groups demanded immediate surrender while others called for resistance. Religious leaders gave speeches about God's plan while protesters burned flags and fought with police. In Rome, Father Paul Green stood before a crowd of 50,000 people and declared that humans had a right to exist freely among the stars. His words were broadcast around the world and gave hope to millions of frightened people. He said that no alien power had the right to enslave humanity and that people should stand together against tyranny. Meanwhile, in the secret laboratory beneath Mount Cheyenne, Dr. Emma Stone worked with her team to understand the alien technology. Years ago, the military had recovered strange metal fragments from crashed objects in remote areas. These pieces had been studied in secret and showed materials that did not exist on Earth. Emma's team had learned to copy some of the alien science, but their progress was slow. Katie Morrison was Emma's best student, and she discovered something important in the old files. The metal fragments showed signs of quantum field manipulation, which could explain how the alien ships moved so fast. If humans could build a device that disrupted these quantum fields, it might be possible to stop the alien ships from working properly. Back in the emergency meeting, Admiral Dixon received reports from space bases around the solar system. Telescopes had detected a large fleet of alien ships gathering at the edge of the system near Pluto. The vessels were much bigger than the ones around the horizon and carried weapons that gave off enormous energy readings. War Commander Thekmore had arrived with enough firepower to turn Earth into burning rock. President Carter knew she had to make the hardest decision in human history. The clock showed only 18 hours remaining before the deadline. Around the world, people waited for their leader to choose between slavery and death. Television cameras focused on her face as she prepared to address the entire human race. Monica Bell begged the president to consider surrender as the only way to save lives. She argued that billions of people would die if Earth chose to fight. Admiral Dixon countered that a life without freedom was not worth living and that humans should die with honor rather than live as slaves. Dr. Kim said his weapons might give Earth a small chance of victory if they were used correctly. The president stood up and walked to the window that looked out over Washington. Even deep underground, she could hear the sound of crowds in the streets, above. Some people were praying while others prepared for war. She thought about her own children and wondered what kind of world they would inherit. Father Paul Green's words echoed in her mind about humanity's right to exist freely. She remembered the stories her grandfather told about fighting in wars to protect freedom. Earth had faced threats before and always found a way to survive. Maybe the aliens were more powerful, but humans had something they might not understand. President Carter returned to the table and looked at each person around her. She knew that her next words would be remembered for thousands of years if humanity survived. The alien ships waited in the darkness of space while Earth prepared for its greatest test. Time was running out, and the future of the human race hung in the balance. She picked up the red phone that would send her message to every communication system on Earth. In a few hours, the entire world would know whether humanity would kneel before alien masters or stand and fight for freedom among the stars. The president took a deep breath and began to speak. Admiral Roy Dixon stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched Earth's combined fleet form up for battle. Ships from every nation had joined together under his command, including vessels that had been enemies just days before. The experimental Battleship Liberty led the formation with its new plasma weapons and energy shields designed by Dr. Alex Kim's team. Behind them came the carriers UES Eagle and UES Phoenix, loaded with fighter craft ready to die for humanity's freedom. Captain Steve Johnson commanded the Liberty and felt proud to lead Earth's defense. His crew had trained for years but never expected to face an enemy this powerful. The gun crews checked their weapons, while engineers made final adjustments to the untested shield systems. In the fighter bays, pilots like Commander Nina Walsh prepared their small craft for what everyone knew would be a suicide mission. The alien fleet appeared near Mars as massive shapes that blocked out stars. War Commander Thekmore's flagship was bigger than any human city and carried weapons that could crack planets. Dozens of smaller vessels surrounded the command ship like metal sharks swimming through space. Their dark hulls absorbed light and gave off energy readings that made human instruments scream warnings. Admiral Dixon opened communications to the entire fleet and gave a speech that would be remembered forever. He told his crews that they fought, not just for Earth but for the right of all thinking beings to be free. Even if they lost this battle, their sacrifice would show the galaxy that some species refused to kneel. The human ships moved forward toward an enemy that outnumbered them 10-1. The battle began when the alien fleet fired first. Beams of pure energy reached across space and struck human vessels with the power of atomic bombs. The cruiser UES Constitution exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Earth. The destroyer UES Freedom lost its front section, but kept fighting with its remaining guns. Captain Steve Johnson ordered the Liberty to charge straight at the alien command ship. Nina Walsh led her fighter squadron against a Dominion battlecruiser that was 3 times the size of Earth's biggest ship. Her pilots flew between the alien weapon towers and dropped bombs on anything that looked important. The enemy point defense systems shot down half her squadron in the first minute, but the survivors kept attacking. Nina's fighter was hit by alien fire, but she managed to crash into the cruiser's main gun and disable it. Engineer Greg Taylor worked in the Constitution's engine room as the ship fell apart around him. The hull was cracked and air was escaping. Into space, but he refused to abandon his post. When Captain Morrison gave the order to abandon ship, Greg stayed behind and overloaded the fusion reactor. The explosion took out 2 alien destroyers and damaged a heavy cruiser. Dr. Emma Stone watched the battle from her hidden laboratory and saw that her quantum disruption field was almost ready. Her team had worked without sleep to build the device, using alien technology they barely understood. Katie Morrison made the final connections while explosions shook the mountain above them. If the quantum field worked, it would disable every alien ship in the solar system for a few precious minutes. War Commander Thekmore stood in his command center and felt annoyed by human resistance. These primitive beings should have died quickly, but instead they fought like animals backed into a corner. His warriors reported that human weapons were actually damaging Dominion ships, which should have been impossible. The humans had somehow learned to copy advanced technology and were using it against their creators. Captain Johnson rammed the Liberty into the side of the alien flagship and felt the impact shake both vessels. The battleship's hull cracked, but its weapons kept firing at point-blank range. Human Marines led by Colonel Frank Davis boarded the alien ship through the breach and fought hand-to-hand with reptilian warriors in the corridors. The humans were smaller and weaker, but they fought with desperate courage. Nina Walsh ejected from her burning fighter and floated in space watching the battle continue around her. Human ships were dying one by one, but they took alien vessels with them. The carrier Phoenix launched its last fighters, even as enemy fire tore through its hull. The destroyer UES Defiance exploded while ramming an alien cruiser, and both ships vanished in nuclear fire. Dr. Stone activated her quantum disruption field just as the human fleet faced total defeat. The device sent invisible waves of energy across the solar system that interfered with alien technology. Dominion ships suddenly stopped moving as their engines failed, and their weapons went silent. For 30 seconds, the aliens were helpless. While their computers tried to understand what was happening, Admiral Dixon saw his chance and ordered every remaining human ship to attack. The battered fleet charged forward and poured weapons fire into the disabled alien vessels. Captain Johnson used the Liberty's remaining missiles to blow holes in the command ship's armor. Marine Colonel Davis and his men fought their way to the alien bridge and planted explosives throughout the command center. War Commander Thekmore roared with rage as his ship's systems came back online. The humans had somehow disrupted Dominion, technology which should have been impossible. He ordered his fleet to retreat and regroup, but promised that the next attack would leave no human alive. The alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of both fleets floating around Mars. Admiral Dixon counted his losses and felt both pride and sorrow. Earth had lost 60% of its space fleet, but had proven that humans could hurt the seemingly invincible aliens. The victory was temporary because the Dominion would return with more ships and better weapons. But for the first time in the war, humanity had hope that the enemy could be defeated. Colonel Rick Mason crawled through the rubble of what used to be downtown Chicago and listened for alien patrol sounds. The Dominion had returned with 10 times more ships and bombed every major city on Earth into ruins. Millions of people had died in the first hour, but many survivors had escaped to underground bunkers and hidden bases. Rick led one of hundreds of resistance cells that refused to surrender even after the occupation began. His team included Carla Stevens, who knew how to make bombs from simple materials, and Ben Carter, who had flown spacecraft before the war. Janet Cole handled their communications equipment and kept them in contact with other resistance groups around the world. They lived in the subway tunnels beneath the destroyed city and came out only at night to attack alien supply convoys. The Dominion soldiers were tall reptilian creatures called Sorok, who wore advanced armor and carried energy weapons. They moved in groups of 6 and could see in the dark better than humans. But they did not understand human determination and kept making the same mistakes. Rick's people learned to use the aliens' overconfidence against them by setting traps. in places the enemy thought were safe. In the ruins of New York, Amy Harper led a different kind of resistance cell that specialized in hitting alien supply depots. Her people had found that the Dominion stored food and equipment in buildings that looked undamaged from the outside. Amy's team would sneak in during the day when the aliens were less alert and plant explosives on critical supplies. Each successful raid meant the occupiers had less food and ammunition. Tom Bradley operated in the Australian outback, where the terrain gave humans a major advantage. The Sauroch came from a world with cities and had trouble moving through wilderness areas. Tom had grown up tracking animals in the desert and could move silently across ground that made alien soldiers stumble and fall. His people attacked Dominion patrols and disappeared into caves before the enemy could respond. Dr. Emma Stone continued her work in the hidden laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains. The quantum disruption device had worked once, but the aliens had adapted their technology to resist similar attacks. Emma's team needed to build something much more powerful, but they lacked the exotic materials required for advanced weapons. The elements they needed could only be found in asteroids that were now controlled by Dominion forces. Katie Morrison worked alongside Emma and discovered that the alien technology used a type of matter that did not exist naturally in Earth's solar system. The Dominion had mining operations in the asteroid belt where they extracted these rare elements to power their ships and weapons. If humans could steal enough of this exotic matter, they might be able to build a weapon capable of defeating the entire alien fleet, Colonel. Mason received a message through the Resistance Network that made him both excited and worried. Scientists needed volunteers for a mission to the asteroid belt to steal alien mining equipment. Everyone knew it would be a suicide mission because the asteroids were heavily guarded by Dominion warships. But without those materials, humanity would slowly lose the war as more alien reinforcements arrived. The call went out to resistance cells around the world, asking for volunteers with spaceflight experience. Sarah Kelly had been a cargo pilot before the war and knew how to fly ships through dangerous areas. Mike Rodriguez was a combat engineer who could break into alien facilities and steal what they needed. Dr. Laura Chen studied alien biology and might be able to help them understand Dominion technology better. Rick Mason wanted to volunteer for the mission himself, but Amy Harper convinced him that the resistance needed experienced leaders on Earth. The occupation forces were getting better at finding hidden bases and more human settlements were being discovered every day. Rick's knowledge of guerrilla warfare was too valuable to risk on a space mission that would probably fail. The volunteers gathered at a secret base hidden in the Amazon rainforest where Dr. Emma Stone briefed them on their target. Asteroid mining. Station Alpha 7 contained enough exotic matter to power the new quantum weapon, but was protected by 12 Dominion warships. The human team would have to approach in a captured alien transport and hope their disguise worked long enough to reach the station. Sarah Kelly studied the flight plan and knew they would need perfect timing to avoid the patrol ships. Mike Rodriguez examined blueprints of the mining station and identified the best places to plant explosives. Dr. Chen reviewed what little information they had about Sauroch psychology and warned that the aliens would fight to the death rather than surrender their technology. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, something was happening that would change the war forever. Ancient alien species that had been conquered by the Dominion thousands of years ago were watching humanity's resistance with growing interest. The Rethek had been the first to rebel against Dominion rule, but their revolution had been crushed, and their world enslaved. Captain Zethara of the Rethek listened to intercepted human communications and felt something she had not experienced in centuries. These primitive beings were fighting with a courage that reminded her of her own people's lost rebellion. The humans had no chance of victory, but they refused to give up even when facing impossible odds. Perhaps it was time for the enslaved races of the galaxy to try again. The resistance mission launched from Earth using a Dominion transport that had been captured and repaired. Sarah Kelly piloted the ship while Mike Rodriguez and Dr. Chen prepared for what they all knew would probably be their final mission. Behind them, Earth continued to burn under alien bombardment, but underground the resistance grew stronger every day. Colonel Mason watched the transport disappear into the darkness between stars and wondered if he would ever see his volunteers again. The war was far from over, and humanity needed every advantage they could get. In a few days, they would know if the mission succeeded or if Earth's last hope had died in the cold vacuum of space. Sarah Kelly guided the stolen Dominion transport through the asteroid belt while trying to look calm despite her racing heart. The alien ship's controls were difficult to understand, but she had practiced for weeks in a simulator. Beside her, Mike Rodriguez checked his equipment for the 100th time, while Dr. Laura Chen studied the mining station that grew larger on their screen. Behind them floated the wreckage of 2 patrol ships they had destroyed during the approach. The mission had cost them dearly. 8 volunteers had started the journey, but only 3 survived the running battle with Dominion forces. Their transport was damaged and leaking air, but they were close enough to the mining station to complete their objective. Mike Rodriguez had enough explosives to destroy the facility while Dr. Chen carried sample containers for the exotic matter they needed. Mining Station Alpha 7 looked like a giant metal spider attached to a massive asteroid. Hundreds of Sarok workers moved equipment through the facility, while armed guards patrolled the outer sections. Sarah Kelly activated the transport's communication system and spoke in the alien language that Dr. Chen had taught her. The station's control tower granted them permission to dock, but something in the controller's voice suggested suspicion. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Emma Stone worked frantically to complete the quantum cascade weapon. Her hidden laboratory had received several other shipments of exotic matter from successful resistance raids. Katie Morrison and her team had managed to reverse engineer enough alien technology to build a device that could theoretically disable every Dominion ship within a light-year radius. But the weapon needed massive amounts of power that could only be generated by hijacking an alien energy harvesting station. The Dominion had built these stations around gas giant planets to collect energy from their magnetic fields. The station orbiting Jupiter was the closest to Earth and would provide enough power for Emma's weapon. However, the facility was heavily defended and surrounded by a fleet of warships. Any attack would have to succeed quickly before reinforcements could arrive. Colonel Rick Mason received an encrypted message that changed everything he thought he knew about the war. The signal came from somewhere beyond the solar system and was transmitted using human communication protocols. The sender identified himself as Captain Zeth Ara of the Rethek and claimed to represent a secret alliance of species that opposed Dominion rule. Zeth Ara explained that the Rethek had been fighting the Dominion for over 500 years, but had been forced underground after their homeworld was destroyed. 3 other species had joined their hidden rebellion, including the crystalline Vorthak, who could manipulate energy fields, and the ethereal Nephilim, who existed partially outside normal space. The insectoid Kithara provided ships and weapons, while remaining officially neutral. The alien captain said that humanity's fierce resistance had inspired hope throughout the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, enslaved species were beginning to believe that the Dominion could be defeated. Zethara offered to help with the attack on Jupiter's energy station, but warned that this would be the rebels' only chance. If they failed, the Dominion would hunt down every resistance cell in the galaxy. Tyler Brooks had escaped from the destroyed horizon months earlier and made his way to a Rethek base hidden in an asteroid field. He had spent weeks learning about the rebellion and was amazed by the size of the underground network. Dozens of species secretly opposed Dominion rule, but had been too afraid to act until humanity showed them that resistance was possible. The plan for attacking Jupiter required perfect coordination between human and alien forces. Sarah Kelly and her survivors had successfully stolen enough exotic matter for Dr. Stone's weapon, but the assault team would need rebel ships to break through the station's defenses. Tyler Brooks volunteered to lead a joint strike force that included vessels from 4 different species. Dr. Emma Stone completed her calculations and realized the quantum cascade would need to be triggered from inside the energy station. Someone would have to manually activate the device while standing next to Jupiter's massive power core. The resulting explosion would disable the Dominion fleet, but would also kill whoever set off the weapon. Emma looked at her team and saw the same determination that had carried humanity through the darkest days of the war. Katie Morrison was the obvious choice to activate the weapon because she understood alien technology better than anyone else. She had been studying Dominion systems since the war began and could navigate the station's complex interior. Katie accepted the mission, knowing she would not survive, but believing her sacrifice might save the human race. Meanwhile, Sarah Kelly's transport finally docked with the mining station, despite the growing suspicion of the Sauroch guards. Mike Rodriguez planted his explosives throughout the facility while Dr. Chen collected samples of the exotic matter. They had almost completed their mission when an alarm began sounding throughout the asteroid. A patrol ship had found the wreckage of the vessels they had destroyed and reported the attack. The mining station erupted into chaos as Sauroch warriors searched for the human infiltrators. Mike Rodriguez detonated his charges early to cover their escape while Sarah Kelly fought her way back to their transport. Dr. Chen was wounded by enemy fire but managed to reach the ship with her precious cargo. The three survivors blasted away from the exploding station just as Dominion reinforcements arrived. Tyler Brooks received word that the mining raid had succeeded and began preparing for the final assault on Jupiter. His strike force included ships from all 4 rebel species, plus the few remaining human vessels that could make the journey. The Rethek provided stealth technology, while the Vorthak contributed energy weapons more powerful than anything the Dominion expected to face. The Battle of Jupiter would decide the fate of the galaxy. If the rebels succeeded in triggering Emma's quantum cascade, the Dominion's grip on power would be broken forever. But if they failed, every species that had joined the rebellion would be hunted down and destroyed. Tyler Brooks looked at his mixed fleet of human and alien ships and knew that history would remember what happened in the next few hours. Tyler Brooks stood on the bridge of the rebel flagship and watched Jupiter grow larger on the main screen. Around him, ships from 4 different species prepared for the most important battle in galactic history. The Rethek vessels moved like shadows through space, while Vorthak crystal ships pulsed with stored energy. Nephilim craft seemed to fade in and out of normal space as they prepared their reality-bending weapons. The few remaining human ships looked small beside their alien allies, but carried the determination that had started this rebellion. War Commander Thekmore commanded the Dominion fleet defending Jupiter's energy harvesting station. His forces included 50 warships and the massive battle station that collected power from the gas giant's magnetic field. The Sauroch commander had been hunting the human resistance for months and was eager to crush this final act of defiance. He did not know that his enemies now included species that the Dominion thought were safely enslaved. The battle began when Nephilim ships appeared inside the Dominion formation, using their ability to travel through dimensions. Their surprise attack destroyed 6 enemy vessels before the aliens could respond. Vorthak crystal singers fired beams of pure energy that cut through Dominion armor like paper. Rethek stealth ships launched missiles from positions that enemy sensors could not detect. Tyler Brooks led the human assault on the energy station while his alien allies kept the fleet busy. His team included Katie Wright, who had been hiding on the station for months learning its systems and mapping its defenses. She had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission, knowing that someone had to manually trigger Dr. Stone's quantum cascade device. The energy station was a massive structure that stretched for hundreds of miles around Jupiter. Its power collectors drained energy from the planet's magnetic field and stored it in quantum batteries that could fuel entire fleets. Katie Wright had spent weeks moving through the station's maintenance tunnels and knew exactly where the quantum cascade needed to be activated. Thekmore realized that this was not just another human attack when he saw the rebel alien ships. The species he thought were conquered had been secretly preparing for this moment. His fleet was outnumbered and facing enemies who knew Dominion technology as well as he did. The Sauroch commander ordered his ships to focus their fire on the human vessels, hoping to break the rebellion's spirit. Tyler Brooks felt his ship shake under enemy fire as he led the assault team toward the station's docking bays. Beside him flew Sarah Kelly in a captured Dominion fighter, while Mike Rodriguez piloted a damaged human transport. They had to reach the station's power core before Thekmore could bring his full fleet to bear on the smaller rebel ships. Katie Wright waited in the station's central core, surrounded by massive quantum batteries that hummed with enough energy to power worlds. She had Dr. Stone's Cascade device ready to activate, but needed Tyler's team to reach her position first. The device would create a quantum storm that disabled every Dominion ship within a light year, but the explosion would destroy the station and everyone inside it. The Rethek fleet commander, Zethara, coordinated the alien assault while trying to keep Dominion reinforcements away from the energy station. Her ships used hit-and-run tactics that the enemy could not counter, while Vorthak crystal singers provided heavy firepower. The Nephilim appeared and disappeared like ghosts, making it impossible for the Dominion to predict their attacks. Thekmore grew desperate as he watched his fleet take heavy losses from enemies who seemed to know his every move. These rebel species had been studying Dominion tactics for centuries while pretending to be defeated. He ordered his flagship to ram the largest Rethek vessel, hoping to break their formation, but Zethara was ready for his attack. Tyler Brooks crashed his ship through the energy station's outer hull and fought his way toward the central core. Sauroch guards tried to stop him, but human determination proved stronger than alien weapons. Sarah Kelly and Mike Rodriguez covered his advance, while Katie Wright prepared the Cascade device for activation. The quantum cascade built power slowly as Katie made the final connections. She could hear the battle raging outside the station, as ships from both sides exchanged devastating fire. The rebels were winning, but more Dominion reinforcements would arrive soon. She had to trigger the device before enemy reinforcements could turn the tide of battle. Thekmore himself led a boarding party to stop the human saboteurs. The Sauroch commander had fought in dozens of battles, but had never faced enemies who refused to surrender even when facing certain death. He cornered Tyler Brooks and Katie Wright in the station's core just as the Cascade device reached critical power. Tyler Brooks threw himself at the alien commander to give Katie the seconds she needed to complete the activation. The two warriors fought hand-to-hand beside the quantum batteries while energy readings climbed toward dangerous levels. Katie Wright triggered the cascade just as Thekmore's claws found Tyler's throat. The quantum storm erupted from Jupiter's energy station and spread across the solar system at the speed of light. Every Dominion ship within range suddenly lost power as their quantum cores were disrupted. The massive alien fleet that had terrorized Earth for months became helpless metal shells drifting in space. President Helen Carter broadcast a message of hope to the galaxy from Earth's rebuilt capital. Humanity stood ready to help any species seeking freedom from Dominion tyranny. The war was far from over, but the galaxy finally had proof that the ancient empire could be defeated. Admiral Roy Dixon stood on the bridge of the new UES Defiance and set course for the galactic core where the Dominion's masters waited. Beside him, representatives from dozens of newly freed species prepared for the long journey to liberate their distant homeworlds. The galaxy would never be the same because humanity had risen against the stars and shown that freedom was worth any sacrifice.